So this lesson is more about unit vectors. Again, in the previous lesson I'd gone over vectors in general, their definition, their magnitude, direction, and how do you exactly label them. So here we have unit vectors. So I may ask a question, for instance, find the unit vector of this vector over here, right? So find the unit vector of this. And so really the main way how you find it, again, if you just want to know the process, it's finding the magnitude of this vector first. That's your first step. And again, how do you find the magnitude? Use the Pythagorean theorem. So 2 squared plus 3 squared, right? That's 4 plus 9, and the square root of that is the square root of 13. So we know that the magnitude of this vector is root 13. And what we're doing is to find the unit vector, we know the horizontal component in this one is 2, the vertical component is 3. We're dividing each component, the vertical as well as the horizontal, by the magnitude. So we're dividing that each of those components by its magnitude. And so in this case that would be 2 divided by root 13, comma 3 divided by root 13, right? And so this is your unit vector really, because again we're just labeling the unit vector. And how do we exactly verify that we have done this correctly? And the best way to really make sure that this is your unit vector, right, is to just determine the magnitude of this vector. For a unit vector, in order for a vector to be a unit vector, right, its magnitude must always be 1. So its magnitude must be 1. And so really to determine if this vector's magnitude is 1 or not, you want to again use the Pythagorean theorem. So let's just do the Pythagorean theorem. So we have 2 divided by root 13, and let's square this, right? Plus we have 3 divided by root 13, and let's square this. So we see that's 4 divided by 13 plus 9 divided by 13, right? That is going to give us a certain value for which we're obviously going to take the square root of that value because we're using the Pythagorean theorem to determine the magnitude. So we have this being 4 over 13 plus 9 over 13. That's 13 over 13, and that is 1. Now we have to find the square root of 1. Well, the square root of 1 is just 1. And so therefore we have proved that this must be unit vector because its magnitude is 1. So the best way to find the unit vector is you know the components, right? You find its magnitude, you divide each component, the horizontal and the vertical, by its magnitude, and that's your final unit vector. You can rationalize it further, right, by multiplying each component here by root 13, right? Because obviously rationalizing it makes it better, more in a much more simpler form. But this is your unit vector, and if you want to verify it, you can find its magnitude then, and obviously it should be 1 as it is here. Now, when you're writing this in the other form, again we can reinforce our other concept, our other way of labeling a vector when we're using I and j. The way how we would do that is we would say that it's really just 2 over root 13, and here we would say it's I, right? So we have that, and then we would say, so we have this vector, right? We have 2 over root 13 I, and then we have plus 3 over root 13 j. So we have brought this as I with something that has I and j, and obviously I don't know why I did put these symbols there. Again, those symbols are really when you're just denoting it as something like this. So obviously if you have this, you would write this as 2i plus 3j, right? If you have something like this, then you would write this as 2 over root 13i plus 3 over root 13j, right? Again, I is always there, and before I is the horizontal component, before j is your vertical component. And obviously you can rationalize this further, and a better way of writing this would be 2 times root 13 divided by 13i plus 3 times root 13 divided by 13j. So this is a more simpler form, obviously. as denoting this vector over here. So really this unit vector over here, you can write this as this, where you have I and j. So you have 2 times root 13 all divided by 13i plus 3 times root 13 all divided by 13j. So that's just a description of unit vectors. So thanks for watching.